There are decisions we make in fractions of a second, but whose consequences we carry for decades. Small choices that, at the moment, seem justifiable, but grow in the shadows like poisonous roots, undermining everything we have built. This is the story of a man who had everything, risked everything, and lost everything for 6 months of illusion. Daniel Carvalho was 52 years old when his life began to crumble. CEO of a technology company with 840 employees, he woke up at 5:15 every morning, even before his alarm clock rang. He would go down to the kitchen of his mansion in a gated community, make coffee alone in the silence that precedes dawn, and for 15 minutes, allow himself to exist without a mask. Just a tired man wondering when exactly he had stopped recognizing his own reflection. From the outside, he was the perfect image of success. Italian suits, a Swiss watch, an office on the 23rd floor, married for 28 years to Beatrice, 2 grown children, revenue that had tripled under his management. But there were invisible cracks in that facade. His marriage to Beatrice had transformed into a civilized cohabitation at least 10 years ago. They shared the same space, greeted each other politely, and attended social events together like rehearsed actors. But there was no touching. There were no glances that meant anything beyond logistical coordination. Daniel couldn't remember the last time they had made love. Maybe 6 months ago, maybe more. It was sex as a checklist item, not as a connection. Loneliness within a marriage is particularly cruel because you can't name it without sounding ungrateful. It was in this state of emotional numbness that Livia Mendes entered his life. Livia was 34 years old and had recently been hired as a digital marketing coordinator. During the interview, when Daniel asked why she wanted to work there, he expected a rehearsed answer. Instead, she said with complete honesty that she needed the job after a difficult divorce, but that she genuinely believed it could bring a fresh perspective. Her sincerity was so unusual that Daniel hired her immediately. In the first few months, Livia was just another competent employee, until a quarterly presentation where she defended an expensive brand repositioning strategy. When a senior director condescendingly interrupted her, she looked him straight in the eye. Respect for experience shouldn't mean immunity to evolution. Daniel found himself smiling, a genuine smile that tugged at the corners of his mouth before he could control it. After the meeting, he stopped her in the hallway, just to say he appreciated her courage. She replied with something that echoed in his head for days. "Mr. Carvalho, with all due respect, you are just a person, like me. If I were afraid to say what I think, I would never say anything. And living in silence is not living." He started making excuses to stop by her department, once or twice a week, just to see how the projects were going, he told himself. But Livia did something no one else did. She asked how he was. Not in a formal tone, but with genuine curiosity. "You seem tired today. Did you get a good night's sleep?" They were small questions, insignificant on the surface. But for Daniel, who had been living on autopilot for years, those displays of attention were drops of water in an emotional desert he didn't even know he was crossing. The line was crossed on a Thursday in October. A fierce storm hit the city in the afternoon. It was almost 10 o'clock at night. The office was empty. Livia was still working on an urgent presentation, unable to get a ride-sharing service due to the storm. Daniel offered her a ride. In his car, the physical proximity changed everything. There was no desk between them, no office space establishing a professional context. They talked about things that had nothing to do with work. She mentioned that she was still getting used to the silence of the empty apartment after the divorce. He said he understood more than she imagined, and then, without planning, added that even though they had been married for almost 3 decades, silence was what they had most of at home. "Loneliness in company is worse than loneliness alone," Livia said softly. "At least when you're alone, you don't have to pretend to be okay." Daniel felt a tightening in his chest. It was recognition. Human connection of the most basic and rare kind. "I see you. You see me." When they arrived at her building, the rain had subsided. Livia unbuckled her seatbelt, but didn't open the door. "Daniel." It was the first time she used only his first name. "Thank you. For being human." Their eyes met. For 5 seconds, maybe 10, they both knew what was happening. They both knew it was wrong. But Daniel leaned in and kissed her. Livia kissed him back with an intensity that surprised them both. "This can't happen," she said as they parted, but her hand was still on his face. "I know," Daniel replied, "but don't ask me to pretend it didn't happen." 2 weeks later, they dined at a discreet restaurant. Afterward, they went to a hotel 3 blocks away. In the impersonal room, they definitively crossed the line. It wasn't just sex. It was vulnerability. Daniel cried afterward, not from sadness, but from relief, from finally allowing himself to feel something beyond functional emptiness. "What are we doing?" he asked in the darkness. "Something's wrong," she replied honestly, "but it feels too right to stop." They developed a carefully orchestrated routine. Different hotels, never the same one twice. Messages deleted immediately. At work, an almost excessive distance. One morning, Daniel was in his office when Beatrice called unexpectedly, saying she would stop by to pick up some documents. He had been texting Livia. He hung up abruptly when he heard Beatrice's voice in the hallway, but had forgotten his unlocked phone on his desk. Beatrice came in, greeted him, and picked up the papers. Her eyes wandered over his phone. Daniel held his breath. She grabbed her bag and left. "See you later." He exhaled only when she disappeared into the elevator. Weeks later, a colleague casually commented, "I saw you at Bistro Laurent on Tuesday. I almost invited you, but you seemed to be in an important meeting." Daniel froze. He had dined there with Livia. "Meeting with an investor," he lied quickly. "Confidential." The colleague nodded unsuspectingly, but Daniel felt the ground tremble beneath his feet. The worst part was when he found Livia's perfume on the back seat of the car. Beatrice was getting into that car in 2 hours to go to a friend's birthday dinner. He drove frantically to an auto parts store, bought strong air freshener, and cleaned every inch. When Beatrice got in, she wrinkled her nose. "What a strong smell." "I had it washed today," he said, his heart racing. She didn't question it. Every moment that he was close to being discovered should have scared him enough to stop. But the addiction to adrenaline, to the connection with Livia, was too strong. Daniel felt guilty. Guilt visited him in the early hours of the morning when he returned home and saw Beatrice sleeping peacefully in her ignorance. But in the morning, when he exchanged a quick glance with Livia in the office, the guilt was replaced by the feeling of being alive. Livia also carried ambiguity. She had no illusions that Daniel would leave his wife, but she had fallen in love with the vulnerable man who allowed himself to emotionally crumble in her arms. "Will you ever leave her?" Livia asked once, lying next to him in yet another hotel room. Daniel tensed. "I don't know. It's not that simple." "Then you'll stay with her." "That's not it. I don't want to be with her in the true sense, but I also don't know if I can make the move to leave. It seems too big, too destructive. And me? What am I in this equation? You're the only real thing I have. But Livia, I need time." She nodded, but something inside her began to shut down at that moment. Because "I need time" is the phrase married people use when they want to keep everything exactly as it is. Still, they continued, for another 4 months. The mistake, when it finally came, was so trivial that it almost seemed like a cruel joke of fate. Daniel was at home on a Tuesday with nothing special going on. Beatrice had gone out to dinner with friends. He was on the sofa, half watching television, half texting on his cell phone, when he composed a message for Livia. "I can't wait to see you tomorrow night." He pressed send without checking the recipient. The message was for Beatrice. He realized it 3 seconds later. The world stopped. Blood drained from his face. His hands began to tremble. He tried to think of a plausible explanation. There was none. Beatrice was in the car driving back when her phone vibrated. She read those 7 words that instantly shattered 28 years of marriage. She didn't answer. She just gripped the steering wheel tighter, even though her ears were now ringing. He arrived home 40 minutes later. Daniel was waiting, pale and panicked. "How long?" she asked, her voice strangely calm, standing in the hall without going all the way in. "What? Don't treat me like an idiot now, Daniel." "How long?" He could have lied, But he was so tired of lying. 6 months. Beatrice nodded slowly. For 6 months you looked into my eyes, kissed my forehead, slept beside me, knowing. It's not just about... He couldn't finish. Who is it? Does it matter? Who is it? Livia. From marketing. Beatrice closed her eyes. The new girl. How old is she? 34. Of course. It's always someone young, because men their age can't cope with the fact that they're getting older. It's not about age. It's about connection, about feeling seen. Don't you dare. She cut him off, her voice rising. Don't you dare give me the excuse of the misunderstood man. Do you think I felt seen? You barely looked at me in years. She took 2 steps toward him, her fury contained. Do you know how many times I've tried to have real conversations with you? And you always had a ready answer. I'm tired, Beatrice. Can we talk about this later? But later never came. Daniel felt something break. You're right. I was a coward. You slept with another woman for 6 months while you were sleeping in my bed, she said bluntly, the shock of her language like a slap in the face. Let's call it what it's called. She turned and started to climb the stairs. Halfway up, she stopped. You're going to sleep in the guest room. We'll talk tomorrow about how we're going to proceed. But today I don't want to see you. The bedroom door slammed shut. Daniel stood in the living room, staring at the empty staircase, feeling 28 years of marriage crumbling away. He tried calling Livia 3 times. She didn't answer. What Daniel didn't know was that Anna, his 26-year-old daughter, had decided to visit unexpectedly. She had a key to the house. She arrived just as Beatrice was going up the stairs. She heard everything, every word. Standing outside, unable to enter or leave. When he finally moved, he called his brother. 20 minutes later, both sons knew. The next morning, Daniel woke up in the guest room with a hangover, even though he hadn't drunk anything. He looked at his phone. 17 messages. Anna's 12. I know. I heard everything. How could you? Words filled with pain and betrayal. Pedro was blunt. You're a jerk. Don't call me. There was a note from Beatrice in the kitchen. I left early. My lawyer will call you. Don't come home before letting me know. B. He tried calling Livia. This time she answered, her voice distant and cold. Livia, thank God. I need to see you. Daniel, no. We can't see each other. Why? I received an email from HR this morning. I'm being placed on paid leave while they investigate allegations of inappropriate behavior between an employee and a supervisor. His blood froze. Who? It doesn't matter who. Someone knows. And now my career is over, my reputation destroyed, and I'll forever be known as the woman who slept with her married boss. I'll fix this. Explain what? That you seduced me using your position of power? That I was foolish enough to think what we had was real? Daniel, there's no fixing this. Livia, I love you. A long silence. No, you don't love me. You love the idea of me. But true love doesn't destroy people. Don't look for me anymore. We've already caused enough damage. She hung up. The phone rang. It was Rodrigo Mendez from the board of directors. We need to talk urgently. In the meeting room, the 7 board members were seated. Rodrigo was direct. We received an anonymous complaint alleging an intimate relationship between you and a subordinate employee. Is that true? Daniel could have lied. But he was tired. That's true. Commotion in the room. Rodrigo closed his eyes. Daniel, do you understand that this violates multiple policies? It wasn't harassment. Daniel interrupted. It was consensual. The company lawyer cut him off. It doesn't matter. There's such a significant power difference that any real consensus is questionable. You're the CEO. She's the coordinator. That dynamic makes any consensus suspect. Daniel felt nauseous. He hadn't thought about it in those terms. But she was right. Livia could never have truly said no, not without fear of repercussions. For how long? Rodrigo asked. 6 months. You've put the company at enormous legal risk. If they sue, if this leaks, the press will love it. Clients will cancel contracts. So what's the next step? You will be resigning from your position, effective immediately. We will inform you that you are leaving for personal reasons. And Livia? She will also have to leave. A generous package will be offered with a confidentiality agreement. Daniel felt angry. This isn't fair to her. You're paying the price, Rodrigo said firmly. You're losing work you've dedicated 2 decades to. And from what I've heard, you're losing your marriage too. He shoved a thick envelope inside. Terms of termination. You will make an announcement to the employees at 4 o'clock this afternoon. At 4 o'clock, Daniel went up on the auditorium stage. 840 employees were trying to squeeze in. Everyone knew that something important was happening. Good afternoon. Thank you for being here. Effective immediately, I am resigning from my position as CEO. Commotion. Whispers spread like wildfire. For personal reasons that I wouldn't want to detail, this was a necessary decision. I apologize for any disruption this may cause. His gaze swept over Livia in the background. Pale, clearly shaken. Their eyes met for 2 seconds. In that brief moment, Daniel saw everything. The pain, the anger, the regret, the shared ruin. Then she looked away. I've spent 20 years building this company. I'm immensely proud of everything we've accomplished together. But it's time to pass the baton. He paused. I want to apologize for any disappointment. I made serious mistakes in my personal life that made it impossible to continue. This is my responsibility, and no one else's. Hesitant, awkward applause. He walked down the aisle, feeling the weight of hundreds of stares. He ended up going to a hotel, an impersonal place where no one would know him. He sat on the edge of an unfamiliar bed. Was this how his life would be now? Hotel rooms? Empty solitude? The phone rang. Unknown number. Daniel Carvalho? This is Fernanda Silva from the Estado newspaper. I'm working on a story about your departure. I've heard rumors of an inappropriate relationship. Could you comment on that? No comment. So you're not denying it? He hung up. 2 seconds later, it rang again. Another number. And again. He hung up completely. And for the first time in decades, Daniel Carvalho began to cry. Not a restrained cry. A deep sob from someone who had lost everything. He cried for Beatrice, for his children, for Livia, for his career. He cried for himself. But more than anything, he cried because he finally understood. There is no shortcut to true intimacy. He had sought in Livia what he should have cultivated at home and had destroyed both relationships. 3 weeks after leaving the company, Livia was at a job interview. Small office, medium-sized company, position far below her qualifications. I see here that you left your previous position after only 8 months, the interviewer said, looking at the resume. Can you tell us more about that? Livia took a deep breath. They had rehearsed this answer with the therapist. There was a restructuring in the department and my position was eliminated. I received excellent recommendations that I can provide. It wasn't exactly a lie, but it wasn't the whole truth either. And she hated that. She hated having to hide it. She hated carrying the shame for choices she made consciously, but that now haunted her. I understand, the interviewer said, but there was doubt in his eyes. In a city like that, rumors traveled fast in corporate circles. Later, sitting in a cafe with her only friend who still spoke to her, Livia finally broke down. I knew it was wrong, Marina, from the very first moment, but he made me feel seen, real, as if I mattered beyond the work I delivered. You mattered, Marina said gently, but at what cost? I lost my job, my reputation, my self-esteem. And for what? 6 months of meetings in cheap hotels, lying to everyone, feeling special when in reality I was just an emotional escape from him. You are also a victim in this story. No, Livia shook her head. I'm not. I had a choice. Every time he called, every time we made plans to meet, I chose to go. I can't pretend I was coerced just because he was a CEO. I was an adult making bad choices. Tears began to fall. You know what's worse? A part of me still misses him. Not the affair, not the secret, but the conversations. The way he actually listened to me. And I hate that. I hate that something so destructive still has pieces that seem precious. Marina held her hand. You will rebuild yourself. It will take time. But you will. I'm thinking of moving. Another city. Starting over from scratch where nobody knows. Maybe that's a good thing. Livia looked out the cafe window, watching ordinary people having ordinary days. I learned something, at least. Emotional intensity isn't love, and feeling special for a few months isn't worth destroying your own life. The following weeks were a blur of legal battles and public humiliation. The story broke. CEO resigns after inappropriate relationship. The online comments were brutal. Predator. Abuse of power. Typical middle-aged man. Beatrice proceeded with the divorce with devastating efficiency. Daniel let her keep the house and most of the savings. They only met face-to-face once. "There's one thing I need to know," she said. "Did you love her?" Daniel was honest. "I thought so. But looking back now, it was more about how she made me feel about myself. It was escape, validation. But real love? Love that builds and sustains? No. I had that with you, and I threw it away. If you had come to me a year ago and said you were unhappy, we could have ended things with dignity. But you chose to lie, and that I will never forgive. Not the betrayal, but the daily lies while looking me in the eye. I don't expect forgiveness. Good, because you're not going to get it. I hope these 6 months make up for the 28 years you destroyed." Ana didn't speak to him. She blocked all forms of contact. Pedro kept his promise to answer the phone, but conversations were brief and superficial. Daniel started therapy. For real. A psychologist who wouldn't let him hide. You used work to avoid intimacy for years. And then, when that didn't work, you used Livia in the same way. Like anesthesia. It was during these sessions that Daniel felt the deepest shame. Not for having been caught, but for finally seeing himself clearly. He started volunteering. Community kitchen 2 days a week. He saw men and women who were truly lost, and realized that even at rock bottom, he still had privileges. "Why are you here?" a veteran volunteer asked. "Because I need to do something that matters. I've spent my whole life chasing things I thought mattered, and I've discovered they didn't matter at all." 8 months after the scandal, Ana agreed to see him. A neutral cafe, public enough for her to feel safe. "Hi, Dad," she said, but the words sounded strange, formal. They sat down. They ordered coffee. Small rituals. "I don't know where to begin," Daniel admitted. "How about explaining how you were able to do that?" And then he told his story. Not the sordid details, but the context. The dead marriage. The loneliness. How he got lost. But that doesn't justify it. Nothing justifies it. I should have been honest with her mother years ago. Tried couples therapy or ended things amicably. But I was a coward. "You know what's worse?" Ana said. "You made me question everything. All my childhood memories. Were they lies? Were you already unhappy when I was 10 years old?" Her voice broke. "You made me doubt my entire story." "No, Ana, no. What I felt for you and Pedro was always real. Always. My failures as a husband don't negate my love for you both. But it wasn't enough. You didn't love enough to fight for the marriage before destroying it. You're right. And I've spent these months trying to understand and change. Is it working? Are you really changing, or are you just feeling bad about getting caught? Honestly? Both. But I'm genuinely trying to be a better person." Ana looked at him for a long time. "It will take me time. A lot of time. But I agree not to cut you off completely. We can have contact. See if you've really changed. I accept this. I will prove it through actions." When they said goodbye, Ana allowed a brief hug. It was something. It was a beginning. 2 full years had passed. Daniel lived in a modest apartment. He worked as a consultant for startups, using his experience to help young companies. He began to speak openly about his mistakes. "Don't do what I did," he would say in lectures. "Don't think that professional success compensates for personal negligence. And above all, be honest. If you're unhappy, speak up. Don't wait until you're so desperate that you make destructive choices." He rarely saw Beatrice. Ana had gotten married, and he had been invited. He sat discreetly in the back, not participating in the photos. He observed Beatrice from afar. She seemed lighter, as if getting rid of him had lifted some of her weight. Livia had moved to another city. I heard she found a position that recognized her talent. Rumors of a new relationship. Someone decent. Part of him felt relieved. She deserved to be happy. "You seem different," Pedro commented at lunch. "More present." "I'm trying. I've spent so much time living in the past or the future, never in the present." Ana notices it too. She's been talking about you more, without the anger. That means something. Small steps, but in the right direction. One afternoon in the park, my cell phone rang. Unknown number. "Daniel Carvalho? This is Marina from the startup TechFlow. Your name was mentioned as a possible mentor. Would you be interested?" He smiled. Not the automatic smile of meetings, but a genuine one. Yes, I would be very interested. Because perhaps that was what remained after destroying everything. The chance to use one's own ruins as a lesson. Not complete redemption, because some broken things never return to what they were, but the possibility of building something new. Daniel knew he would never fully recover what he had lost. Beatrice had moved on. His children loved him cautiously. Livia was in the past. His career had ended in flames, but he was alive. He was growing, finally learning to be human instead of a machine. That vulnerability is not weakness. That honesty liberates. That real connection requires presence. He passed a young couple in the park, holding hands and laughing. They seemed so sure that their love would last. Daniel silently wished it would. That they would do the necessary work when things got tough. That they wouldn't wait until they were so broken that they sought repair in the wrong places. Because that was the truth he had learned through excruciating pain. There is no quick fix for existential emptiness. There is no person who can save you from yourself. There is no shortcut to true intimacy that doesn't involve honest vulnerability and consistent presence. And when you try to find those shortcuts, when you seek to fill holes in your own soul using other people as anesthesia, you end up creating destruction that spreads like waves, hurting not only yourself, but everyone around you. Daniel returned to his apartment as the sun began to set, painting the sky orange and pink. He prepared a simple dinner, ate alone, but without the despair of loneliness he usually felt. He called Pedro to confirm lunch for next week. He texted Ana asking how work was going, not expecting an immediate reply, but knowing she would eventually respond. And then he sat on the tiny balcony, a cup of warm tea in his hands, watching the city light up in the distance, and allowed himself to feel something he hadn't felt in a long time. Peace. Not complete happiness, not full fulfillment, but a quiet acceptance of where he was and who he was. An imperfect man who had made monumental mistakes and was spending the rest of his life trying to be minimally better. It wasn't a fairy tale happy ending. It was an honest, real-life ending, where consequences don't magically disappear, but you learn to bear their weight with a little more grace, where forgiveness comes slowly, if it comes at all, and redemption is daily work, not a single dramatic moment. And perhaps in the end, that's the most important lesson, that our choices matter deeply, that small lies grow until they consume everything, that seeking validation outside when the problem is inside only multiplies the damage, and that the only real way forward is through brutal honesty, hard work of self-knowledge, and the humility to accept that some broken things remain broken. But still life goes on, and we can choose to be better than we were, one day at a time. If this story made you reflect on choices, consequences, and the search for redemption, subscribe to the channel. Here, each narrative reveals human truths that we rarely have the courage to face, and perhaps by listening to them, you will find a little of yourself in each one.